All right, here we go. We have James Buster Douglas, the former undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, the man responsible for the greatest upset in sports history when he knocked out the then undefeated Mike Tyson. Buster, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I mean, number one, I actually am old enough to actually watch this fight with all my friends on TV. This was not just the biggest upset in boxing, not just the biggest heavyweight upset, but the biggest upset in sports history. Like I said, you were 42-1 against you winning this fight. And you turn around and you beat the guy that nobody thought was beatable. So it is unbelievably my honor to sit down with you today.
Yeah, it's all right. This is cool.
Okay, so this is our first time sitting down, so I actually want to get into your whole story. So you grew up in Columbus, Ohio.
Correct.
And your dad was actually a professional boxer himself, William Dynamite Douglas.
Right. He was the first national Golden Glove champion in Columbus as well.
Okay, so he was like a hometown hero.
Right.
Okay, so what was it like growing up in a house when your dad is such an accomplished boxer?
It was pretty cool. A lot going on, because I had 3 younger brothers, and they were pretty active kids. You know, we all fought, the 3 of us, the first 3, me and Robin Artie, we all boxed. Artie was a pretty good boxer as well, but unfortunately, his life was cut short in 81. He was, killed, gunshot, and he never got a chance to fulfill a dream as well, but he was a talented fighter as well.
Okay, what was the situation around your brother getting killed?
Well, it was accidental shooting. It happened right across the street from where we grew up at. And that was a pretty painful moment in my life, of course. But survived it and continued on.
Oh, okay, how old was he when he died?
17.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Okay, so I know you guys took that unbelievably hard, especially
No doubt.
your parents.
It hit the family hard, that's for sure. Because he inspired me, because I used to love seeing him fight, because he was a good boxer. He was a talented kid.
Okay, and the area that you grew up in, I mean, you came from a 2-parent home, and your mother and father had a very loving, close relationship. But the area that you grew up in, was it a rough area with a lot of crime and drugs, or was it kind of more of a middle class?
Middle class. It was a middle class area. You know, it was a working class area. You know, it was just kids being kids, you know, a little mischief.
Yeah. Okay. And there was a situation when you came home after getting bullied by a kid, and your mom actually slammed you on the floor and said, "Now you're gonna go back there and fight that kid."
Right, that was grade school. I was probably in the 4th grade, fourth grade, and the kid never put his hands on me, but he just talked. And I was crying and walking away, and he was walking behind me. You know, all the other kids were behind him, edging him on, but he never put his hands on me, but he just talked. And when I walked in the house, my mom grabbed me and slammed me on the ground and told me that if I didn't go out there and fight that kid wasn't nothing but mouth, that I was gonna have to fight her. So it was like the next day we went out there and he was messing with me again, and I popped him, and that was it. Never looked back.
Okay, so did you have any other bullies in school after that, or people kind of left you alone?
Yeah, they kind of left me alone. Because I was standing up for myself, you know. They knew they would have to fight if they fought me. You know, we got into a confrontation. I wasn't one that was just gonna back down easily. So, and that was for the most case, even today, back then rather, if you stood up to them, you more likely wouldn't have no problems if they knew that you was gonna stand up and accept your challenge. But, it was just part of growing up, I guess.
Okay, so at what point do you go from a kid who gets in a fight to school every so often to actually following your dad's footsteps and actually putting on the gloves of boxing?
Well, when I was 10, he took me into the gym. He ran the gym in Columbus. Blackburn Recreation Center had just been built, ran by the city of Columbus, and had a boxing gym in there. He was a boxing instructor, and we had a pretty good boxing team. A bunch of kids in there, kids my age and young adults, teenagers and young adults, and we had a nice team. Traveled all over the state and fought all the time. We had the Golden Gloves here, National Golden Gloves, and the National State Fair tournament. And 2 major tournaments, and some of the biggest fighters in the world that became professionals had fought in the State Fair tournament. That was a huge tournament in the summertime, August. And, gained a lot of experience and had a great time. Met a lot of nice people. Gained a lot of good friends.
Okay, so were you one of these kids that as soon as you put on some gloves, you were just a natural and you were exceptional, or did it take a while for you to kind of get into your rhythm of this?
A little bit of both. I was a natural, and it took a little while to really sink in. But then again, I think I was a natural. Yeah, I was a natural. Took to it like fish take to water. And had a good time at it, really enjoyed it. I was a peewee, I only fought from 10 to 15, so once I turned 15, got to middle school, I started playing basketball, little league football, and didn't come back to it until I was like 21.
Okay, so then May 31st, 1981, that was when you made your actual professional debut.
Right. And the little story about that, little tidbit, is actually it was like an exhibition. We had headgear on, 16-ounce gloves, training gloves. But, they counted it as a professional fight, so I was trying to get ready for the fair that year because Marvis Frazier, team from Philadelphia, was coming to town. And I was wanting to compete against Marvis. And when I went to sign up, the boxing instructor or the administrator was like, you're no longer amateur, you're a professional. I was like, what? I'm just an amateur. I'm not in a professional fight, but it was on that professional card, and they considered it as a professional fight.
And your first fight was against Dan O'Malley.
Right. Actually, it was Michael Lear. That's who it was.
Oh, Michael.
Oh, yeah,
sorry.
Dan O'Malley. You're right. Dan O'Malley. I apologize. You're right. You did your homework, my friend.
I did my homework.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have your first fight. You win. It was only a 4-round fight, right?
Right. 4 rounds.
With headgear and bigger gloves, but
right.
Hey.
It's counted as a professional win, yeah.
Exactly. So now you got your first, so now you're a undefeated professional boxer.
Right.
At that point. Okay. And then your first 5 fights, you actually ended up winning as well.
Right.
Until you fought David Bay.
That was in Pittsburgh. Larry Holmes and Renardo Snipes was the main event. And that was like my first my first shot at the big time. And total disaster, getting up in the middle of the night, driving to the bus station to pick up my girlfriend. Picked her up, brought her back to the hotel room with me, and was just messing around.
Oh yeah? Does that actually? Because you hear these stories of how you shouldn't have sex before your fights and stuff like
Right.
that. Is there any truth in that?
To me, it is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so and David Bay ended up knocking you out in the second round.
It wasn't a knockout, but it was a stoppage.
Okay. How did it feel to take your first loss like that?
It was horrible, horrible. Knowing what I did, and it was just horrible. It was like, man, what a way to start this crap. So then I got the aura of being a quitter. Put a little pressure on him, he'll quit. So I had to deal with that for a while.
Okay. And then you had 6 more fights and you won all those.
Right.
Until you fought Stefan Tankstead, which ended up being a draw.
Right, which I believe I won that fight. But that's when my dad and I drove to Chicago. And Stefan flew over from wherever he lived at to the States and, would fight and then go back to his country But they took a couple of points away from me during that fight because they announced that prior to the announcement of the decision. They said, well, remember, we took 2 points from Douglas for hitting on a break. So then they announced it as a draw.
Okay. And then after that, you fought Jesse Clark.
Right.
And you fought him 3 times and you knocked him out all 3 times.
Right.
Okay. And during this time, you weren't making a lot during your fights.
No, these were like 4-round and preliminary, 6-round fight, 8-round fights. Back then, they probably paid you $100 a round, $125 maybe, at the most $150. Only time you really got paid on them fights like that is when you fought on a world-class championship card. They paid good money. Everybody got paid. But it was just building your record up, preliminary, trying to get that status to fight the 10-round main events where you can get recognized and recognition wins.
Then you fought, in 1983, you fought Mike White.
Right.
And did Mike knock you out or was it a stoppage?
Stoppage. Well, I was hurt,
Okay.
Mike. That was my first time really being hurt. I didn't know where I was. I was pretty bad. I mean, he hurt me. I was hurt. I mean, it was like the 9th round. I think it was the 9th round stoppage. I was doing pretty good. I was winning the fight, and he caught me with an uppercut. And that was my first time really being hurt. And it was a learning experience, that's for sure.
Well, you had a few more fights after that. You fought Randall Tex Cobb.
Well, okay, now the Tex Cobb fight, I came in to fight Tex Cobb and lost my first time in Las Vegas. We fought at the Riviera. And that was like on a week's notice because they called Monday. My manager called me Monday and says, what about Tex Cobb? I said, well, he could be beat. He said, well, we got him Friday. I was like, whoa. So we flew out Wednesday, weighed in Thursday, and fought that Saturday.
Okay. And then you had a few more fights. You fought Jesse Ferguson.
Right.
Then you fought
that was in the
Greg
ESPN tournament, Jesse Ferguson.
Okay. You fought Greg Page.
Yeah.
You fought David Jaco.
Yeah.
So then after these fights, you had a chance at a bigger fight. And I guess that Michael Spinks got stripped of his title, so you end up fighting Tony Tucker.
Right. We were like the number 1, number 2 contenders in that division. So once they stripped Larry Holmes, stripped him of his title, the top 2 contenders fought for the belt. And that was a pretty belt too, red pretty belt.
Okay, so you go into this fight with Tony Tucker. How did you feel about this fight coming into it?
I felt good. I mean, I felt, good going into the fight. I had sparred with Tony a couple of times, probably a couple of years prior to that. My dad took me up to Detroit to his training facilities and sparred him a couple of times. I did pretty good against him. And so, we ended up fighting each other. I felt confident, about going into the fight.
Okay. Do you think the Jerry curl gave him an advantage? Allowed him to kind of slip out of you, when you're trying to fight him?
I'll use that excuse. The Jerry curl juice was getting in my eyes. No, Tony was a good fighter. He was a good fighter, and he won that fight.
Okay, and this was a very controversial fight because in the 10th round, they're saying that you just quit.
Right.
From your point of view, did you quit or did something else happen?
I was under a lot of pressure leading into that whole time. During that course of training, the camp was pretty chaotic. People weren't getting along, and it was just, a lot was going on. I had to deal with a lot. So after that fight, made some changes and proceeded to move forward.
Okay, well, the changes you're talking about is you and your dad actually ended up splitting at that point.
Right.
And so your dad was your main trainer?
Right.
Up to that time?
Yes.
Okay. So what made you, you're not just splitting with a trainer, you're splitting with your father. What made that finally happen?
Because he was being uncooperative. He didn't like my manager. He and my uncle didn't get along, which was my co-trainer, and made it for a bad time. We weren't grooving together. We weren't gelling. Everybody was just they were tense, scared to say anything. Afraid to get popped. Because my dad was a very intimidating man, and he had a lot of people uneasy, and it kind of carried over into the fight.
Are you telling me that your dad would hit you when he would disagree with you?
No, not me. Not me. It was never directed at me. It was directed at my manager and my trainer, my uncle. They would all be arguing in the gym and stuff, because he would say something, my dad say, shut up. Don't be telling me to shut up. I'm a grown man, They were at each other quite a bit, made for a bad situation. Then eventually it kind of affected, me and, kind of, because they weren't themselves. They were just, they were walking on eggshells, afraid to say something because it could be confrontational. It was very confrontational camp. I like things to go smoothly. If anybody gonna be acting up, it's gonna be me.
Okay, so at that point, you pretty much just started from scratch. You went and got a whole new team.
I had to start all over again.
Yeah.
I had to move forward without my father.
Okay. Did that hurt?
No, we talked. We talked every night. After that, I would call him and tell him what I did that day and how I was feeling. And then he would give his advice, and we just moved forward like that. So he was still involved, but at a distance.
Okay. So then after that, you won four of your next fights. And then you fought Trevor Berbick in '89, which you won by unanimous decision.
Right.
And then you fought Oliver McCall.
Right. That was a big fight.
Right. And that was the fight that kind of sort of put you in the conversation of fighting Mike Tyson and so forth?
Right, because during that time, Oliver was one of Mike's sparring partners, and he was giving Mike the business. He was giving Mike the business in the gym. So they were looking at him like a possible opponent. So I had the ranking as number 2 contender in the world. So we fought each other, and basically whoever came out of that was going to get, more likely get a shot at the title.
Okay, because at that time, Tyson was killing everybody.
Right.
He was, not only was he winning every fight, but he was winning his fights in like 30 seconds.
Right, record time.
You know, if you went to the bathroom at the start of the fight, you would come back and the fight would be over. And he was really, not only was he the heavyweight champion, and he was like the youngest heavyweight champion at like 18?
21.
21, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was essentially the most popular celebrity in the world. I mean, definitely the most popular athlete in the world.
Right.
He was probably bigger than Michael Jordan at a certain point.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And he was seen as someone who's just unstoppable. He's never been knocked down. He's never lost.
Right. By then he was definitely proven, because he beat some quality guys that I even thought that was going to show better, and they didn't. He wiped them out. He wiped them up. He beat them pretty good.
Okay. And Evander Holyfield was sort of already in the mix. Now, why did you get that fight instead of Holyfield?
They were having problems making that fight for one reason or another. And I was like the number 2 contender, number 2, number 3, and number 4 contender in each division, each sanctioning body. And so it was like while they're working on trying to figure out what they're going to do with that fight, it's like, we'll take this fight, take it to Tokyo, and you know, get a payday and come back and, you know, fight the big fight.
Right. It was viewed as a filler fight. This is just a fight that's, you know, we're going to kill a little bit of time until we get the Holyfield fight.
Exactly.
When you got that phone call and said, the guy on the phone said, you are going to fight Mike Tyson, how did you feel?
I felt excited. I was ready. I felt good. I was reformed and I was ready to go, and couldn't wait to get the opportunity to fight for the title again. And I felt really strongly about, you know, that I had what it would take to become champion because of my prior opportunity that I had lost to Tucker. I learned a lot in that fight, that I knew that if things went a certain way, that I could win that fight. I should have won that fight as well, but I knew I had to fight, go back in line and I beat like 5 or 6 guys that were pretty decent, looked at, and to get the opportunity to fight Mike, but I wasn't beating them in the fashion that Mike was beating everybody, so it wasn't looked at as, you know, a possibility that I had a chance. You know, I wasn't knocking them out or nothing like that, but I was beating them up.
Right. And leading up to the fight, I mean, Don King talked a lot of shit about you. He said, Buster Douglas is a quitter. You know, he quit against Tony Tucker. He's going to quit again. He has no chance. Mike Tyson said, there's no possible way I'm going to lose.
Right.
There was a lot of confidence in that camp.
Right. No doubt. No doubt. And, you know, it was like, okay, but, you know, it was definitely an uphill battle, that's for sure, as it was looked upon in the so-called experts. But, you know, I knew I had what it took to do this, or I wouldn't have got involved in the boxing game. So, but, you know, it's a challenge, and I was willing to accept it.
Right. And the reason why the fight was even in Tokyo was because Vegas felt they couldn't sell any tickets with Buster Douglas on the card.
Right.
So they had to go to the other side of the planet
Yes.
and try to make their money back that way.
As I said, I had to cross the pond to fulfill my dream.
Yeah. How much, I mean, if you could say, how much did you get paid for that fight?
1.3 million.
Okay. Before that fight, what was the most you ever got for a fight?
175, 175.
Okay, so you were already building up. You were starting to make real money.
Yeah, I was
averaging
about 100 a fight, for quite a while. Because I was the top 10 contender from 80, probably 85 to, I retired. So, I was making decent money.
Okay, and when you first told your mom that you want to do this fight, your mother told you not to do it.
No, she didn't.
No, that's not true?
No, that's not true. Like I said, my mom never doubted that I could. She was just doubted if I had the ability or the discipline to, apply myself, because she never doubted me. It was my grandmother, her mom, my aunts, her sisters, that were like, whoa, because by then, Tyson was just a menace, man. And if you weren't walking around decapitating people, it's like you had no chance against this man, because he was definitely made his presence known, and he was getting guys that sometimes that I thought it was going to show, but he would just dispatch them in record-breaking time. So, yeah, like I said, by the time my opportunity came around, he was like King Kong in there.
Okay, so you guys accept the fight, and then you start your training camp, and you're taking this 100% serious. Mike Tyson, on the other hand, Customato had passed a few years before that. He was wrapped up with Don King. He was messing around. He had this huge entourage. He was messing around with girls and getting into trouble that way. And it was a bit of a, he wasn't taking this seriously because he didn't feel like he needed to take it seriously. But you were taking it 100% seriously.
Oh, you wait for me to answer?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I wasn't really. I was out partying too, just to make it easy. I heard he was partying, so I was like, I'm going to party too. I'm going to go out here and kick it, Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I don't believe you, but whatever. I do not believe you at all. So here you are, you're training for the greatest, biggest fight of your life.
Right.
And you're taking it 100% seriously. And you and your mom are unbelievably close. This is your rock. This is your best friend. And a few weeks before the fight, your mom ends up getting sick.
Well, she was always sick. She had been dealing with that for quite some time, but it just got worse. It worsened, and even then, I didn't know that it was as bad as it had gotten, because when she came over to the house, which is like a week before I left, to talk to me to see where I was mentally, she was really bad then, but she got up and drove over to my house, and she asked me these questions about how I felt and, what I was gonna, see where I was mentally. But after we talked, she felt confident that I was gonna show, and she was telling her friends before I left, before she passed, that I was gonna win. So mom's intuition.
Well, your mother was only 46 years old, unbelievably young.
Right.
And 23 days before the fight, she ended up having a stroke and passed away. Were you actually there when this happened?
No, I got a call that she was getting ready to go to the hospital. And when I got over there, she had already passed. Because JD was outside the house. And I went in there, I went into the bedroom, and then she was covered up. And I went to pull the cover, but it was tucked up under, so I didn't really pull it, but I tugged at it a little bit. But I didn't want to see her anyway. I did, but I didn't. And that was that. You know, then I seen them push her out the house. You know, put her on a gurney, and you know, took her out of the house.
Yeah, I lost my dad late last year, and that was a rough one. So I could somewhat connect to what you went through. It was. I can only imagine how bad it was, considering what you were in the middle of and how you don't really have time. You don't really have time to mourn. You can't say, okay, I'm going to take a month off and just cry and be with my family. You have 3 weeks from now, you have the biggest fight of your life. So you almost have to push it to the back.
Right. But it was times throughout the training after that I would break down. Like after the workout, I would go into the locker room. I know my trainer came in there. I had the towel over my head. He was like talking to me. Then when he pulled the towel over, he seen I was just bawling, you know. But, you know, you had your moments, but you got to suck it up and keep going, because I knew that's what she would want me to do. Instead of being able to not continue, I think it would have hurt her more, so believing her passing affected me in a negative way. So just had to turn that all around and make it work.
Right, because your trainer actually asked if you want to postpone the fight, but you said no. She wants me to fight. I'm going to fight.
Right.
Do you think that her death really kind of lit a fire under you, or kind of just created a level of anger or something from that extent?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
In a positive way. It just, you know, it was tough, but you know what I mean? She always raised us to be strong young men, and I was just, had to keep going, stay strong for her, nothing else.
So then, February 11th, 1990, in the Tokyo Dome in Tokyo, Japan. You fly over there, and everyone's gearing up for the fight. Now, you had 42-1 odds against you.
But you know what, though? Not to cut you off, it wasn't even odds. That was after the fight. Because you couldn't even bet on the fight. It wasn't even booked. That was just something they came up with after the fact. You know, it was maybe said when one casino had it, but everybody else was nothing. It wasn't even couldn't even figure out how they could, you know, do something. Because by then he had such sensational first round knockouts, about 4 or 5 of them. It was like, knew this was going in straight sets, because I was showed nothing as in the defense unless I went in there with a couple of guns or something. You know, other than that, it was like way out the pocket.
Okay, and you were taller than Tyson,
as most of his fighters.
Yeah,
fought him.
You had a 12-inch reach advantage,
as everybody else.
Right, it's not like you were just obscenely mismatched compared to his other matches, but you did have a physical advantage over him.
Right.
Which didn't work before, but this time is going to be a little bit different.
Right.
So coming into the ring, you know, when you guys, meet with the referee and you touch gloves and everything. Well, was Tyson just like trying to get in your heads, giving you that death glare and everything?
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't look at him. I was just more focused on what I had to do, thinking about what I was going to do and filling out the ring. I went in there bouncing around, making sure the ring was all secure, wasn't no bad spots in it. Just knowing this was it. Got to let it go now. You don't do nothing else. You better let it go now.
So the fight starts, and after the first round, you didn't get knocked out like everyone else did.
Right. That was a feat in itself.
Right.
Wait a minute. A bell rung.
Right. You lasted more than 90% of his opponents.
Right.
Once you got in the ring and, did he really connect with you on that first round?
No.
No, he didn't really touch you. Okay.
I mean, he touched me. He touched me with no effect.
Okay.
Nothing to make me say like, oh my gosh, it's never been like this before. So it wasn't nothing spectacular.
Okay. And you came in and with all your training and all your strategy, and you were sticking with your strategy. You started hitting him with the jabs and he was running into your jabs and you kind of started to touch him up a little bit. When that started to happen, how did you feel? Was the confidence starting to build at that point and you were like, okay, this is actually gonna be a real fight?
Yeah, like, wow, this shit could actually work. Hey, hold up now. I'm hitting him. The bell's ringing. It's like, wait a minute. What is going on? Surprised myself.
Well, by the fifth round, Mike Tyson's eyes started to swell up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought that was mirrors, like, oh, that can't be. This can't be happening.
Right. And in Mike Tyson's corner, by this time, since he didn't have a real solid crew together, the guy that was supposed to be his ring man didn't even bring, what do you call that tool you're supposed to put on your eye?
Inswell.
He didn't bring an inswell. So he actually took, what was it, a balloon and filled it with water?
No, it was a rubber glove. He put some ice water in it. Yeah, because, I mean, like I said, by the time we fought, it was like, 30 seconds, a minute, maybe 9 minutes at the most. So they were very relaxed. And last time they were in Tokyo, he only went like 3 years before that, he only went like 6 minutes, in that fight. So they got real lackadaisical.
Yeah. So when you saw that you had swollen up Tyson's eye, you're now 5 rounds in. And at this point, you're pretty much winning every round, right?
Yes. At least to the naked eye, but on judges, it wasn't like that. On the scorecards was red. But yeah, because I come back to the corner, my corner telling me, we won that round too. We're doing great. He's keep doing what you're doing. And, but that's what my dad always said, don't never leave it to them judges because you don't know whatever they be looking at, man, or thinking about.
Yeah. Well, during the fight, Larry Birchin said, well, if Mike Tyson, who loves pigeons, was looking for a pigeon in this bout, he hasn't found him.
Right.
Okay. So here you are, you're doing well, 5 rounds in, Mike Tyson's eyes swollen up, you're winning the rounds or you're close to winning the rounds. It's Tyson's hardest fight at this point in his life. And then by round 8, Tyson knocks you down.
Right.
But you said that this wasn't the hardest you've ever been hit.
No, by then, man, I've been hit on. I mean, it's just, it's all about, you never know. Because I've been hitting the gym harder sometimes. outside of fights, you know. But you just never know which one is gonna be the one to give you that pop that you never felt before.
Okay, so you got hit with a Tyson uppercut. You went down, and when you watch the fight, right? And I watched it again this morning. To me, it was very clear that you were not dazed. You could get up anytime. You waited until about the 9 count to fully come up and say, okay, I'm ready.
Right.
But according to Tyson, and I remember I watched a clip from his Broadway show, he's convinced that you had 13 seconds on that mat.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, that he was convinced that you were given 13 seconds and technically he knocked you out.
Right.
And he still says that to this day.
Right, but they don't say how many seconds he got.
Right.
That referee was scared to death, like, oh my gosh, 1,100, 2,202. His count was longer than mine. He's talking that smack.
Right. Okay.
That might be a discussion, because we're supposed to do a podcast together.
Oh, you and Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. That's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to get to all this in a bit. So you got knocked down. Did you think at that point that the fight was over, or, you know, with this knockdown, I've just lost the fight if it goes to a decision? Because at that point, that's the only knockdown in the fight.
Right. But
because I mean, think about it, right? Because let's just say the fight went to all 12 rounds and there was only that one knockdown, you probably would have lost.
I'd have lost, yeah. I mean, the scorecard was ridiculous. Even up to the point when I knocked him out, they read the scorecards and couldn't believe it. Like, wow. I don't know what these judges were looking at, but it was, and that's expected, because you got to kill the champ to win it. Because he gets a, it's like you go into the ring with the champion and you down 5 rounds just showing up. You know?
Right.
So you got to kill him.
Okay. Well, you get back up after a 9 count. You know, at that point, I think the bell rang at the point that you're getting up. So you go back to your corner.
Well, I got up, and then the bell rung.
Right. Yep. And you went back to your corner. And was there a strategy at that point, or was it like, okay, let me just get out there and do what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah, it was just, you know, they were giving me instructions, you know, like my manager said, he's going to come like hell now, you know, and really it was just to throw the water, splash that cold water on you and rub you down with the ice pack and, you know, try to revive you as best they can within that 60 seconds.
Well, then the 9th round starts, and Tyson just wants to finish you off at that point. He starts hitting you with everything he got.
Right.
And he tried to knock you out. And usually that works. But in this case, what do you think kept that from happening? Because
I fought back. I wasn't hurt. I mean, you know, I took his punches and came back. And he sent him back on wobbly legs. Because when you see him walking back to the round, at the end of the 9th round, he was a little shaken. Because I hit him with some big shots. Because I know basically we just stood toe to toe and wailed on one another.
Were you hurt by this point or no?
No, I was wide awake.
Okay. So you took the worst that Tyson could dish out, and you're still on your feet.
Right.
So you're like, okay, like this is now a real fight. You know, I know, you know at that point that you have a knockdown working against you. You got fighting the champion working against you.
Well, the scorecards wasn't even a factor. It was the fight itself.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, this is it. It's a fight now.
Okay. So then the 10th round comes along. When did you know that it was all over?
When the referee said 10, 9
okay.
till,
but
9
I mean,
till, because I thought it was over in the 8th. Because I felt so good. It was like I'm gonna have a moment to reflect. Like, look, I stopped punching and looking at him like, what do you think about me now? And he showed me, caught me with that shot. Wow.
Okay. Well, you started dominating the 10th round, and then you hit Tyson with that massive uppercut. And you see that in slow motion when Tyson gets hit with that, and you just see the eyes roll up in his head, and you know at that point it was just completely over. It was what, a four-punch combination?
I still thought he was going to get up, though, because he was, until he started reaching for that mouthpiece, then I knew he was hurt. Because I knew the count had to be pretty much close to 10, 7, 8 or something, you know. Cause when he was, and then I knew he was hurt because if he was coherent, he'd have just got up. Now they gave him an extra few seconds because the referee would have went and got the mouthpiece and put it back in his mouth, giving him more time to recover. But by him looking for that mouthpiece, I knew he was, you know, pretty bad shape.
Okay, so you felt that Tyson had a long count at that point also?
Well, I didn't feel it. I wasn't thinking about the count. I just knew that, you know, if he wasn't hurt, he wouldn't have been reaching, trying to find that mouthpiece.
When that referee said 10 and then waved his arms, because Mike Tyson was kind of up by then, but he was wobbly.
Right.
Right. He got up and the referee said 10 and the whole place exploded. How did that feel in that moment?
Oh, childhood dream come true. It was a spectacular, sensational feeling. You know, it was like a childhood dream, you know, achievement, you know, and it was a great feeling, you know, to actually accomplish what I always dreamt about as a kid, as an amateur boxer, you know, and to accomplish that as an adult was just awesome.
Well, Larry Merchant, you know, as he was announcing the fight during the knockout, he said, "This makes Cinderella look like a sad story."
Right.
The post-fight interview started. Number one, Mike Tyson didn't even do a post-fight interview, right?
Right.
He just.
They took him on out. They took him
on out. They took him away. But you had a post-fight interview. And when, I believe it was Larry Merchant, when he first said, how much of this is because of your mother passing, you just started to cry right there in the ring.
Right.
How did it feel, you know, with your mother passing and you just winning the biggest fight ever, I would say, you know, all of that coming down all at once on you?
That's how I was. It came pouring out of me. Couldn't have no words. It was just emotional, you know, just, yeah, that's how much anger and exhilaration was inside me.
Well, in that post-fight interview, you said, I whooped his ass. He came to fight. I came to fight.
Right. That was it.
You said, I wasn't afraid of him. I fear no man. I believe in God, and that's the only man I fear.
Right.
You said, it's only a dream. I watched thousands of guys put on belts on after fights, and one day I dreamt that it was going to be me.
Yep.
And you also said, I kept chopping on him, and eventually he's going to go. As you could see, he was flat on his ass.
Right.
So you were talking your shit at that point. Well deserved.
I was in my mojo.
I mean, you know, you deserved it. You deserve to talk your shit because I can't even imagine the amount of shit that people talked about you. I remember, you know, I watched that 42-1 ESPN thing.
Right.
And the announcer said, you know, something to the ESPN guy was like, yes, and Buster Douglas is going to fight Mike Tyson, and the fight's probably not going to last longer than this announcement I'm making right now.
Right. This segment, exactly.
Yeah. This segment is probably going to be longer than the fight.
Yeah. It was hilarious. It was just, I mean, I was at a New Year's Eve party and this woman was looking at me and like, kind of shaking her head. And I walked over like, hey, what's up? And she was like, man, you must be desperate for some money. I was like, what? To be fighting Mike Tyson? So it was like, it's over before it even starts. You crazy to be doing that.
Mm.
Yeah, it was pretty wild time, that's for sure.
Well, here you are celebrating, right? The happiest moment of your life. You get back to your dressing room, and then you get told that they're actually filing an official protest to the whole fight from Tyson's camp.
Right.
Did you take that seriously at that point, or were you like, whatever, I won, no one's going to say anything?
Well, I took it serious, but I knew that there was no way they was going to get this off because the world seen it. It would have been back in my father's day where it was just radio. They might have gotten it off. But being that it was shown all over the world, it was like, no way. And then, because after that, well, not right after, but a few months later, the outpour was just too ridiculous that, 1 minute you're supposed to walk around here as the baddest man on the planet, and then you finally face adversity, then you're going to cry like a baby, so, what is it?
Right, because you were given the IBF belt, but then the WBA and WBC
they were
didn't want to give you. They didn't want to give you the belts because of the protest.
Right, they were dragging their feet because the IBF belt wasn't even sanctioned over in Tokyo. Wasn't even at that time wasn't looked at as a championship belt. Everybody everywhere else, but they were the first ones. They acknowledged me right off as you won the championship. You won the belt. And then after a couple of months, the WBC and WBA gave in and gave up the belts. And I like that. That was nice because I got those belts. I received them at the WBC belt at my high school, my former high school. That was pretty cool. That was pretty awesome. Cause that's where I won a championship there too, in basketball. I was on the state championship basketball team. We were undefeated, 26-0, ranked number 2 in the country.
Now, wasn't there like a lawsuit that Don King tried to file against you and everything?
Yeah, I had to go to court and everything. I spent my whole time between winning the title and defending the title in court. Or if I wasn't in court, the court part lasted for about 3 days. But prior to that, I was flying around trying to figure out which state they were going to have it in. So I had lawyers in Las Vegas, I had lawyers in Ohio, I had lawyers in another state. But, we were trying to figure out which one they were going to hold the court in New York, yeah. So it was
okay, and didn't you actually, sorry, go ahead.
So it was like, all these different law firms I'm flying around to trying to decide on which one which law firm was going to defend me. So I had to go back, flying back and forth to different states. There was 3 different states to see where it was going to be at, which one was going to be actually be my attorney in court, attorneys in court. I had to pay him like $4 million to go away.
Wait. You had to pay Don King $4 million?
Yeah, because he was claiming that I was still under contract and I wasn't. That was my last fight with him. Because, after Mike was proven, usually, because I've signed quite a few contracts with Don, because he was the man in the heavyweight division. You wanted to get a shot at the title, you basically had to sign with him. So,
wait, so you were signed to Don King when you fought Mike Tyson?
Right, yeah. But that was my last fight with him, see. That was the dispute. because usually it's like a 4-fight deal. You sign up for 4 fights, and then that 4th fight, when you sign up for the last fight on the contract, usually you automatically have on the contract that you're signing that you re-up for another 4 fights. But by this time, Tyson was proven, so he figured there was no way in heck that I was gonna, win the fight. So it was just 1 fight, you're done. You're lucky to get an opportunity because we were trying to dispute the money, wanted to get more money. He was like, you better take this money I'm giving you or you're not gonna get the shot. So
Okay.
that contract was just for that fight only. He was trying to say that that's what his big dispute was, that I still was under contract with him. Even though it was basically showing obvious, we still had to go to court.
Okay, so you're gonna come off $4 million plus whatever your legal costs were up to that point.
Right.
How annoying was that?
Pitiful. In the beginning, it was all right, but it wore out fast because it just got tired of doing all that traveling and fighting. It was like, usually, say, for example, if any other time it would have been like you win the title, get a chance to go and relax and enjoy yourself and preparation of thinking about who you're going to fight next and where it's going to be. Then you go in the camp and prepare to defend the title and move on from there. But it wasn't like that with me. It was like an ongoing battle. It never stopped.
Okay. And, for example, I interviewed Zab Judah. And I remember when he started working with Don King, Mike Tyson had warned him not to do it because Mike Tyson had his issues. Didn't he end up beating up Don King at one point?
I'm not surprised he jumped on him. I know a few fighters jumped on him over it. Yeah, because
Right,
he get you in that web, and then like, say for in their cases, a lot of times they wouldn't have the power, the money to battle him in court, because it would be a while. And if you didn't have the money to pay the lawyers as you go along, then they would be like, well, look, this is going to take another year, and I'm not willing to do this without getting some kind of financial, payment. So then they would settle and, end up with a bad deal. But I was fortunate enough, just winning the title, that I had money. So I was able to pay my lawyers and, keep them off.
Right, because I interviewed Zab Judah, and Tyson warned him not to work with Don King, but Zab was like, well, yo, I'm gonna have all my shit laid out. Like I got all my
it ain't gonna be like that with me.
I gotta pay for. It's not gonna be like that with me.
Right.
And then after the Mayweather fight, he said Don King shorted him $1.5 million. After you signed to Don King, did you and Mike Tyson have a conversation about this? And what did Mike tell you?
Be smart. Be smart. I mean, you know about him, and I'm like, all right, nah, Mike, I got it. I mean, see, here's the notion and the thing. Everybody, like even now, there's fighters that's still signing with Don King right now. They're still signing with a lot of promoters that people have heard that done a lot of greasy and grimy things to people. People will still sign with them today. Why? Everybody has the notion in their mind is, oh, he ain't gonna do it to me. He ain't gonna do it to me.
Yeah.
I got my business in order. Here's my business manager, my lawyer, my this, my that. Everybody got the same bullshit story. So I had the same story.
You had the same story.
He ain't gonna do it to me. I'm good. We got all the T's crossed, I's dotted. I was coming out of my contract with Shelly Finkel in Duvas. And Don King caught me with the with the white man shit. Oh, brother, come on, brother. Them motherfucking Jew motherfuckers, they got you. Come on, brother. Don't be over there. They slick, brother. They slick. He got me with that shit like that.
That's how he got Tyson also.
Yeah, I mean, but he's good.
He used the black angle on him.
No, he used that fucking mouthpiece. Don King's the coldest pimp ever. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna, boy, listen, I mean, the reason why I say he the coldest pimp, because he used us. We was his horse. We was the one that went got money for him. I use it in the terminology of pimping.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, Don had us. We went out there. We got money for him unknowingly. This is how he conducted the business. And then when you know what I'm saying, when when you ain't good for him no more, he get rid of you.
Well, what was your worst experience with him? What was that one thing where you're like, man, I can't
Not
believe
making your money and getting your check, and the shit don't say what you negotiated.
Really?
That's when me goes back to Brownsville. Then the Brownsville come out. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Well, how much did he short you?
$1.5 million.
He shorted you $1.5 million.
Yeah. So he got his cut. He got his, everybody got their money. He got his cut and still took another $1.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah, see. Bad.
Yeah. Have you ever spoken to Don King after that?
No.
Okay. And from what I understand, you still don't like him.
Well, you know, it's not a good situation, that's for sure.
Yeah. Did you and Tyson ever speak after that, after the fight?
You know, just a couple of years ago in Los Angeles, I think it was a birthday celebration or something. It was in Los Angeles, and I was there. And then that's when he asked me to would I do his podcast. But that was the first time since the fight.
Yeah. I mean, was it tense at all, or was it friendly,
No,
or
it was
how
good.
was it?
It was laid back.
It was good.
We're old men now.
Okay. So was it because of all the lawsuits with Don King? Was that the reason why the rematch with Tyson didn't happen?
Yep. It was just lost at this it was horrible. You know, you never figured that to be part of your dream of winning the title. You have to go through, you fight in the ring, win it legitimately, and then all of a sudden you gotta have another legal battle, in court, and it's just like unbelievable.
Right, which is too bad because, I mean, Buster Douglas and Tyson Part 2 was definitely going to be 100 times bigger than Buster Douglas versus Evander Holyfield.
Right.
Bigger payday, bigger everything. So the bullshit that Don King was doing in terms of lawsuit prevented that from ever happening, which is kind of crazy.
Right.
Because he would have gotten way more than $4 million for a Tyson Douglas Part 2 or a Douglas Tyson at that point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Life.
So then you had your title defense with Evander Holyfield, the #1 contender. Was there anyone else besides Holyfield that you could have fought? Anybody
I wanted. But I wanted Holyfield.
Right, but I'm saying, in that caliber though, was there anyone else that could have happened besides Holyfield? Was Holyfield really just a above and beyond contender at that point?
No, I had Foreman. Foreman was in there.
Right.
And then the rematch with Tyson. Then you had Lennox Lewis out there. I mean, we had legitimate contenders. I mean, the top 10 was a legitimate top 10. Anybody could have been a champion any given night. The belt could have switched hands. But, so there was definitely qualified fighters, but it's what I wanted at the time. It just didn't work out, but, it was like no other. No, nothing else be like it before. Shit.
Okay, so then Buster Douglas versus Evander Holyfield came around. You had a $24.6 million payday for that fight.
Right.
A crazy amount of money. I mean, in today's dollars, that's probably close to 50.
That was record breaking at the time.
Oh, so that was more than any boxer had gotten?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much did Holyfield get for that fight?
Probably about, I think, 8.
8? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a nice chunk of change.
No doubt.
No doubt. Okay. But as you're weighing in, you weighed 246 pounds.
Right.
Which is 15 pounds heavier than the fight when you fought Tyson.
Right, in which I fought at 146 pounds, 246 pounds before, but it was pretty bad, man. It was pretty tough. It was a tough time.
Okay.
A lot of things were going on. A lot.
Well, when people saw that you weighed so heavy, the chatter was, he's not taking this fight seriously. He just wants the payday.
Well, that's BS, because not only that payday, because there's more to come when you win. I mean, duh. You know, that was just the beginning of the milk train. You know, it was just unfortunate it didn't work out like that, but that was.
Well, you could look at it that way. I mean, you could definitely look at it, this is just the beginning of hundreds of millions of dollars, or you could look at it as 24.6 million, that's retirement money. Like, I could retire off of that. You see, and this is what people were saying at that time.
Right. Yeah.
Was the training camp? Was it the lawsuit that was messing you up? Was it personal problems?
Everything.
Was the training camp not on the same caliber of the Tyson fight?
Everything. It's just that it got out of control. You know, I put on more weight than I should have between the fights. That's definite. That was for sure. Because I must have lost about 40 pounds, a little over 40 pounds to get to that weight. Maybe more, because it depends on what scale I got on. But, you know, then it was like, you know, a small window. You know, I always looked at it like if I'd have had another 3 or 4 weeks, it would have been a lot different. But that's the way it goes.
Okay. When you stepped in the ring with Holyfield, were you confident in the same way you were confident with Tyson? Or was it, you know, I should have trained harder, I should have been more focused, and now I'm in a little bit of trouble?
Well, you know what? I trained hard, but it was just, I only had maybe 4 or 5 weeks, you know, between going to court and then settling, and then it was like, bam, we got this date, and this is all the time we got to prepare, you know. So it was pretty, a lot of stuff was going on. We were being dictated to instead of being the dictators.
Well, the fight starts, and the first 2 rounds, Holyfield was kind of dominating those rounds. So is that a fair assessment?
Okay.
How do you think the first 2 rounds went?
You know what? I don't even remember.
Okay. Well, in the 3rd round, you try to hit Holyfield with an uppercut, but he ended up hitting you, and then you got knocked down.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
What do you mean?
It was terrible, man. It was just desperation. You dream of obtaining that, being a heavyweight champion, and then you get it and you think it's going to be a certain way, then it turns out to be just the opposite of what you thought. You know, that's what that experience was.
Well, when he hit you with that uppercut and you went down, you know, you were kind of laying flat on your back for a while, but it almost seemed like you could have gotten up, but you couldn't tell whether you wanted to or not from the outside looking in. It didn't seem like you were just completely, you know, you didn't look as bad as Tyson did when he got knocked out. It looked like you could get back up. Was that accurate or no?
By that time, the world was on. It was terrible, man. It was a bad time.
Yeah.
I tell you, I'm lucky I even got in the ring. That was a terrible, terrible time. And it never got better for quite a while. It didn't get better.
Right, because I think like In Living Color made skits about you. They had like a guy playing Mike Tyson, and you know, they took little shots at you. I mean, a lot of people were taking shots at you at that time. But, you know, things happen. people lose, people take losses, people come back, but it seemed like after that, you got kind of caught up in a whole wave of depression.
Very much so. And then my anchor was no longer with me, so I really had nobody I could talk to.
Yeah.
Pretty bad situation.
Well, you ended up going from 246 pounds to almost 400 pounds.
Right. It didn't stop.
Oh, what was the heaviest you ever got?
That was it. I'm just saying. It just kept, until I went into that diabetic coma.
Right. You weren't a diabetic before that, right?
No, I wasn't. I'm perfectly healthy.
So you gained so much weight that you ended up getting diabetes.
Right.
At that point, before the coma, here you are, 400 pounds, diabetic. Did you think, okay, look, if I keep going down this path, I'm just going to die?
Yep.
And
that's where it came to. Waking up in that hospital, it was like, whoa, this is it. I almost checked out of here, And that was inspiration enough to get back into life, the game of life.
Well, even with the loss, you had, over a $24 million payout.
Screw the money.
Now,
Screw the money. It's my life, man. That's more important than anything. What do you keep going back to that money for? It's my life.
Right. Well, what I'm saying, though, is leading up to all the weight gain, with all that money, were you just like, fuck it, I'm just going to buy a mansion, I'm going to buy a bunch of cars, I'm going to ball out? Was that sort of part of the whole weight gain thing, along with the depression, trying to sort of use retail therapy to sort of deal with the sadness?
No, it was just, I just kept it within, took it out on myself. Had my heart on my sleeve, so it wasn't hiding behind anything. It was just obvious that I wasn't in the right frame of mind to let myself go like that. I was unrecognizable at one time.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it was like a Sports Illustrated article. And
right, and
they showed you, and I'm like, whoa, that's Buster Douglas. Okay.
Yeah, see, yeah, it was horrible, man. It was a tough time, I tell you, but I learned a lot in that time, and, it was just like, it took me there. I was on the brink of jumping off the cliff, but I was blessed enough to have the strength to turn it around, get back in the game of life, and think of what was more important. Not just thinking of myself, but my family.
Well, Holyfield went on to have a solid career. Did you and Holyfield ever talk after that fight?
No.
Okay.
No.
Do you feel any sort of animosity towards him, or was it just,
not
business?
At all. Not at all. I mean, he's a man, did his thing. Like you said, he had a solid career. He did some incredible, stuff. Coming from where he came from, from the weight class to be a heavyweight champion for so long. He really did a fantastic job.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mike Tyson ends up going to prison, over the alleged rape charges. He comes out, he fights Holyfield, and he ends up biting his ear, biting a chunk of his ear.
I was at that fight.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah.
Okay. From your point of view, as someone that fought both men, when you see Mike Tyson devolve to biting a man's ear off, actually off, like the whole chunk of his ear was off.
Right, half of it.
How half of his ear was off. How did you feel about that whole situation?
Well, I didn't know what happened. I'd seen him jumping around, Holyfield jumping around, but it was like, what's going on? And then they said he bit his ear off. I knew that Mike was in a low point in his life as well. Like, wow, this is real. I kind of felt sympathetic knowing how he felt, because it's a lot of pressure, a lot to deal with, but That's what we chose to do. But you know, things happen in life, and you turn it around, make the best of it, and that's what that's what Mike has done. Turned his life around and more positively now. But that was just a low point.
That was. I think, you know, for all of us that were such Mike Tyson fans, seeing Mike Tyson lose to you was one thing. That was a huge disappointment for everybody. But seeing him have to bite off Holyfield's ear, that was just like, oh, come on. Like that's when I think a lot of Tyson fans sort of just, he lost a lot of his fans. Like, okay, like anyone could lose, but biting off a man's ear after spitting out your mouth guard, like, okay, come on.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unsportsmanlike. Period. Like, who? I've never even heard of this happening in any sport.
Right. But it's more than just a sport. It's the mental state of one's mind. You know, it's just pressure. You know what I'm saying? And you never know how you will react in situations. And you know, there's a lot going on. It's a lot to deal with. It's more than just fighting, get in there try to beat another human being, but you know, a lot going on mentally in one's mind. You know, it's all about stability and stuff, being stable and focused.
Well, after your diabetic coma, you actually turned your life around. You got back, you started training again, you started losing weight, and you actually make your way back into the ring and make a comeback.
Right.
And you won your first 6 fights after that.
Right.
How did it feel to be back in the ring again and doing your thing?
That was so awesome. That was like, wow, you know, who would ever thought, you know? Because like you said, just from that Sports Illustrated article, was like, you know, who is that, you know, to actually coming back from that, going through what I had to go through or went through, and then to end up back in the ring, you know, and to be successful was just it's a huge accomplishment. And it was just credited to human desire, you know, wanting to will something and making that actually happen.
Well, weren't you supposed to fight Roy Jones Jr. at one point, like in the late 90s?
Yeah, but he pulled out. His dad told him don't do it.
Well, why is that? Any idea?
Because he felt it wasn't in his best interest to fight me. You know, it's just biting off too much.
At this point, Mike Tyson and Roy Jones are still supposed to fight. Originally, it was supposed to happen around now, but I guess it got pushed back to November or something. And now Roy Jones is saying that he doesn't think he's going to do it.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I heard last, that it's not going to happen. And I was surprised that it was even announced, because I was like, wait a minute, what does he see that I don't see? Or, you know, because you got to feel like you can actually beat somebody to accept the fight with them. But I was wondering, that was really confusing, because I know what he and I went through, but then he's going to turn around and fight Mike. So I was like, wow, so he must see something or know something. But then I see that he's really doubting it now, debating whether or not he's going to do it. So I don't think it's going to happen.
As someone who fought Tyson, do you think, and Tyson looks good these days. I mean, when he's in shape, he's hitting the bags. Do you think that Roy Jones has a chance against Tyson?
He has a chance, but it's a slim chance. Slimmer than Buster Douglas.
Right, because originally it was supposed to be Holyfield versus Tyson. What do you think would have happened in that fight if it had actually happened?
Well, that's a toss-up too. Mike seems to be in a good spot, good place. You know, positively rejuvenated.
Well, in 1998, you fought Lou Savarese.
Yes.
And I guess you got knocked out in the first round.
Right.
After that, you had 2 more fights, which you won. But then you retired in 1999. You had a final record of 38-6-1. What made you ultimately retire in 1999?
Lost interest. The zeal wasn't there. You know, it was just like I felt like I had a good run, and I wasn't willing to put in the work anymore.
You gave so much to the sport, you know, and all the you know, the main guys that we remember, they really had to sacrifice their own bodies in order to get there. When you look at all the damage you took in the ring, you know, you took it. You sat there and you went toe to toe with the best guys out there. Do you feel like it was all worth it?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah. You know, in 1995, HBO, they came out with the Tyson biopic, which a friend of mine, Michael Jai White, he played Mike Tyson. And you actually were portrayed in that movie by actor Dwayne Davis. When you watched that movie, what did you think?
I didn't watch that. I didn't see that.
You never watched it?
I never watched it.
Was there a reason for it?
I never watched it. When was that again? 95?
95, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't in a good state then either.
Okay. Maybe you could watch it on demand. It's a pretty good movie. It's pretty good. Well, these days, well, number one, you're a grandfather now.
That's right.
How many kids do you have?
Grandkids,
Well, how many kids and grandkids?
I got 4 boys and 7 grandkids.
You have all sons.
Yeah, I have all sons, yes.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. You don't
My
see that too
dad
often.
had all boys. My brother
Okay,
Bill,
runs in the family then.
my youngest brother Bill has a girl. He's the first. He broke the mold.
And in Columbus, Ohio, you actually train young boxers in the same gym where your father trained you.
No, same department. It's like in the department we have maybe 7 gyms, and I'm training at one of the gyms that I fought at, you know, as a kid, but where I actually trained at is on the east side of town. I'm on the north end, like just outside of Ohio State campus.
Yeah. Well, I think it's dope though that you're actually helping other kids follow your footsteps.
Yeah, but you know, it's different because there's a lot more women and young ladies that's involved now. You know, actually boxing. Now that took some time to get used to. I mean, I was squinting, you know, when I first started seeing them fight, you know, but I'm kind of comfortable with it now. But that's the difference now. You got young ladies in the gym now. And then a lot of older women working out, but they just working out. They're not sparring, but they're training, hitting the hand pads, hitting the heavy bag and stuff, you know. But
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, now you have women boxers, also
then you have
in the UFC.
Yeah, but that UFC is way out there. That's way out there for me. But I like the boxing though.
Yeah.
UFC is like a barroom brawl. They do everything but eye gouge.
I mean, when you see, you know, by 2020, you have situations like Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor becoming one of the biggest paydays ever when you see this sort of crossover.
Incredible.
You're not really.
That was incredible.
That?
That was incredible.
Yeah, you like that?
No, I'm saying how they generated that money. That was incredible. That was incredible. And then McGregor didn't do too bad.
He did it.
He
did it.
He did pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was waiting for McGregor to kick Mayweather in the face, when he was losing, but he actually kept his composure the whole time.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And it was competitive.
Do you feel that Mayweather is the greatest boxer of all time, considering his record?
He's one of the greats. He's one of the greats, that's for sure.
If you were to break down the 5 greats, excluding yourself, who would they be?
Joe Louis, Jack Johnson, that's my favorite. Muhammad Ali.
That's 3.
I would have to think about it.
Mayweather, would that be in your top 5?
Oh yeah, Mayweather would be 1.
Okay, so that's 4. You got 1 more.
And
I mean, there's Sugar Ray Robinson. Did you already mention him or no? No.
Sugar Ray Robinson.
Sugar Ray Robinson. There you go.
Yeah. But them guys like Sugar Ray Robinson, man, and Jake LaMotta, these dudes were fighting 6 weeks after a fight, and they still be like stitched up. That's some major stuff there, boy. Them guys is in it for real. I mean, you still kind of freaking sore after 6 weeks. And cut, so if you got cut, you're vulnerable. It's a touch, to get touched, you open back up. These guys are fighting 8 weeks and, 10 weeks apart, man. That was crazy. There was some Iron Man there.
Well, you're 60 years old.
Right.
When you see, these talks, and it hasn't happened yet, but, Mike Tyson is 54. Holyfield, I think, is 57. Roy Jones is 51. So you see guys in their mid to late 50s wanting to get back in the ring again. As someone who did it professionally for a very long time at the highest levels, do you think this is a good idea or not? Because I remember when I interviewed Adrian Broner and we talked about the Roy Jones and Tyson fight, he said, I hope nobody dies in the ring. I hope nobody gets very seriously hurt in the process.
I just hope nobody get hurt, because they both is up in age, and in this game you can get fucked up bad. And Roy Jones has had some bad knockouts. It's one thing to lose a fight, but it's another thing when you out cold, I mean, and this happened multiple times, and Tyson have had his bad fights, and then Tyson's up in age, Roy's up in age. They both still can punch. Like I don't think it's a good idea.
Do you think that being in your 50s is too late or no?
Well, considering that they're both the same age, I think it's all right. It's safe. It's an even tempo. You know what I mean? I could see being a threat if it was like 60, 23, 60, 33,
Right. Yeah.
Stuff like that. Because you see right now, I watched just the earlier today that Tyson and the heavyweight champ in England, talking about doing it. Yes.
Who is the guy from England you're talking about?
What's his name? No. The other one, the British. Well, I know both of them British, but the
Well,
black
are you
one.
talking about not Tyson Fury?
No, not Fury. The other champ, man. He just won his title. Beat the dude that knocked him out. Beat the little short guy. Just won the title.
Why am I?
Oh, see, man.
The heavyweight.
Yes,
I'm about to
yeah.
look it up. Okay.
He got all the belts. He got all the belts but the WBC. Joshua.
Hold on, about to.
Joshua.
Here we go. Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, Joshua. They talking about Tyson and Joshua.
Okay, Anthony Joshua is 30 years old.
And Tyson is 54. And they're talking about Anthony Joshua and Tyson fighting. I seen that today.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't know.
I seen that today. They were talking about Anthony, and they were asked Tyson. He said, "Oh, that'd be great."
Yeah. I'm looking at it now. Mike Tyson is up for an Anthony Joshua fight next.
Yeah, I told you.
It would be, I guess, it would be an exhibition.
Of course, but I mean, just the fight itself. Though you can say whatever you want to say, but it's a fight, you know.
It's a fight, yeah. I mean, fights could go any direction.
Any direction, but I mean, it's now that's out there. Even though Mike feels and looks good, he's still that's really pushing the limit there, pushing the envelope.
Well, the way I look at it is if Tyson couldn't beat Holyfield 2 times,
right,
and he was still relatively young back then. He was what, in his 30s?
Right. If that,
I can't see him. I would have a hard time seeing him win beat a champion at 54 when the current champ is 30. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
And I'm sure Tyson's gonna be mad at me for, for saying this, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I can imagine if he was just, if he was like like a Mayweather figure that just kept winning over and over again.
but you see how that all evolved from Tyson coming back, putting on an exhibition with Roy Jones to now all of a sudden bringing Anthony Joshua into the mode. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, because no matter what happens, Tyson is such a celebrity to this day. It's the celebrity aspect surpasses any level of boxing ability or record or whatever else.
That's true.
He is just a massive celebrity.
That's true.
He was the biggest celebrity during his day because he would knock people out in 30 seconds. And then he would do crazy shit outside the ring. Didn't he say he wanted to eat your babies and like all this crazy shit? And remember, he got into the argument and he said something like, "I'll fuck you and made you love me," or something.
Oh yeah,
that.
Oh yeah.
And and then the rape case, he went to prison. And then the Tupac. Think about Tupac died right after a Tyson fight. Let's not forget that part.
Right.
Let's not forget that. And then there's the biting of the ear. And then there's the face tattoo, which is kind of common. It's kind of common these days to have a face tattoo, but it wasn't when Mike Tyson did it. That was seen as really over the edge. And yeah, man, he's just such a celebrity that no matter what he associates himself with, it's just going to be a circus.
Right. I agree.
But no matter what people say, no matter how you want to paint the picture, the first person to put down Mike Tyson was James Buster Douglas.
There it is.
When no one in the world thought that you could do it, except for you. You knew you could do it. You walked in the ring against all odds, and you beat the man that everybody said was unbeatable.
Right.
You sat there and you did your training and you did your job and you were not scared and you did not care about the stories or you didn't care about what happened with other people in the ring. You came in there and you did the impossible. And like I said in the very beginning, you are responsible for the biggest upset in sports history. Point blank.
There it is.
There it is. James Buster Douglas, truly an honor. I am a big fan. And not only what you did in the ring, but how you turned your life around, because you honestly could have been dead by now if you just went down that same path that you were heading down after the Holyfield fight.
No doubt, no doubt.
Yeah, 400 pounds, diabetic, in a diabetic coma, depression, everything else like that. You turn it around, and here you are, you're a grandfather, you're teaching kids how to box, you seem good, you seem healthy, and you're sitting on an incredible legacy, man, and I'm truly honored that you sat down with me today.
I appreciate it. No problem, man. Thanks a lot. Had a great time. I enjoyed it. One of my better interviews.
Okay, that's what I try to accomplish, man. All the best for you. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Peace.
Take care.